G'day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 47 of the Rugby League Coach podcast. This is now a special day for the podcast. We've got our first sponsor on board, Special Ops Socials. So Special Ops Socials is the first official sponsor of the Rugby League Coach podcast, other than, of course, Rugby League Coach itself, which is run by Lee Addison. Lee Addison, the man to my left. I'm not sure how he looks on your screen, but Lee, welcome to episode 47.
Thanks, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, great, thanks. And we also have Brendan Rose down underneath you. Rosie, how are you, mate?
Good. Yourself?
Yeah, really good. Thank you, fellas. Let's just dive straight into it. And I'm just going to hit you straight off the bat. Reports today, massive reports today. Hook will be hooked within the next 24 hours as we record this podcast, being Monday night. Supposedly he will be told Tuesday night. Now, do they need to tell him, or can he just read social media and the newspaper? What do we think?
Well, everyone else in the world seems to have known for a couple of weeks that he was getting the hook. So Hook probably knew he was getting the only people who don't know this is the board at St George Illawarra Dragons, and they finally managed to decide to have mention it at their committee meeting tomorrow night as we record this podcast. Why they didn't have an emergency board meeting, I'm critical of the fact that they went public, or it ended up being public, that they were asking Griffin to reapply for his job. That basically meant they lost faith in him. What they should have said was, behind closed doors, Hook, you've got 4 games to prove to us, or 8 games that you're the person to take us forward. Because recruitment conversations and player retention and whatnot, these discussions happen well ahead of when they used to. Some of them are decided when the first ball's kicked. We've already had Jack Whiten decide where he's going next year. Other players, Stephen Crichton, decided where they were going next year before a ball was even kicked this season. There's been others as well. Herbie Farnworth, Flegler announced it nice and early, didn't he? So this shows that St George are basically a few months behind anyway. And then they've probably added another month or 6 weeks to this process. And at the same time, they've also made the confidence of their team and the faith of their team and the desire of their team, they've probably fractured that as well. I've got nothing but negative thoughts about the way St George have handled this personally.
I actually listened to NRL 360 and a few other things have come out about the club over the past 7 weeks. There was talk recently that the team had a dinner and for Ben Hunt's 300th and no one's turned up. Also too, I was reading some articles in regards to now that St George have put themselves into this corner, Jason Ryle's a coach that hasn't been a head coach at all, is now calling the shots on what the contract's going to look moving forward. To the extent of he wants full control over recruitment, he wants full control over his assistants. I agree with him 100% over his assistants. If you're going to work, you want lieutenants behind you that have got your back. But a guy that's never and he wants a 5-year contract. I guess you've got the Craig Bellamy thing now where he's got 12 months. So whether he's only got the 1 option or 2 options now is really, really big. But I 100% agree with Lee in regards to this. It's, to put it plainly, it's just turned into a real mess, to be honest. Probably better adjectives that we could use, but I suppose it is past 8:30, so it's past PG. But But
people can listen to it anytime.
Yeah, it's just really like probably one of the most iconic, greatest clubs in Australia, definitely in rugby league history. I've never seen it's dead set on its knees. Like, we thought the Broncos, a unit, was in a really bad one 2 years ago, but St George are making them look like the Melbourne Storm.
One thing I will say about Brisbane, I think I said it last week, I can't remember, but I totally associate Brisbane's mini resurgence with the arrival of Ben Ikin, to the point where when he did arrive, they literally got a good result that weekend against the Grain. They had a better end to the season and they had a better 2022.
Yeah.
And they're obviously having a better 23. So we're now going into territory. I mean, it's probably a coincidence, but, they lost a game at the weekend. Ben Eichen at the time talked about how he was going to put structures in and around Kevy to help him so he could focus on coaching. I know when I'm dealing with coaches a lot, I mean, there's so much that goes into coaching alone. I mean, most of the work I do with coaches is about how they program what players do in each session, just from a skill acquisition perspective. And I fix their drills and their games from a game specificity perspective. And that's just coaches in the community. So an NRL head coach has got so much to think about on top of dealing with agents, dealing with the media, dealing with personalities, so many other things, to the point where it's well known it's about 30% of the job, the X's and O's and training and whatnot. So
you talk to Craig Bellamy. Craig Bellamy, probably, if not the best, one of the best modern day coaches. And he cannot talk more highly of who's his lieutenant, the football manager down there in Melbourne. I've just
Frank
gone
Panisi.
Frank Panisi. The way he talks about him. So Craig Bellamy coaches pretty much. The two of them. It's like a spy and a halves combination between the two. And he Bellamy doesn't even have the sort of control that Riles wants. He'd have close, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, Frank looks after the roster, and Bellamy would tell him the type of bloke he wants, but that trust.
Yeah. I guess that is true. I did read something not too long ago about the Melbourne Storm saying that they sort of get looked at and they get scouted out by one of the big three, either Bellamy, Frank Panisi, or I actually forget the other fella's name.
It'd be Pete Nolan. Is it Pete Nolan?
It is.
No. Sorry, it's Bunny.
Paul Bunn.
Bunny.
Right. So one of it, they put.
Was he not retired though now? Also,
put it up to the group.
He's probably going to be the next Broncos football manager.
They have a one-on-one meeting, and then if that person, whoever it is, progresses, they go to a 3-on-1. And it's those three, and they have a conversation with him. And all three have to agree before they sign that player. Now, they've obviously worked together for years and years and years. They have this trust. Actually, there was a really good post on Rugby League Coach Facebook page about this that was pretty insightful on the three types of coaches you can have and systems, with Melbourne Storm being like that. I'm gonna say one thing about the Dragons and about that Jason Riles request. Do you think it's unreasonable for him to request the head of recruitment? Yes or no?
What's his track record with recruitment?
We don't know. We don't know what he does, what he did. Well, it sounds like he didn't have a lot to do with recruitment at the Storm, listening to the structure that Taylor was saying.
It sounds like he wants complete control of the joint, the keys to the castle.
Is there a problem with that?
I think it's very dangerous for a rookie coach to want that. And I wonder if part of him doesn't want to take the job. That's why they're going in with such high demands and security.
Why would you say that what you've just said there, Lee? Why do you think it's dangerous for a rookie coach?
Merged club, choppy waters to start with. It's a difficult rebuild. It's
you've described the club. You haven't described why it's hard, why it's difficult for him to be the head of recruitment as well. That's.
I know.
And I'll tell you why. I agree with it. I think if you're going to be in control of the results on the park and you have to dictate how that team's going to play football, you better have also be able to say, this is how I want to play and these are the types of players I want in that side. I've got no problem with him being the head of recruitment in that sense. Should he be saying, this is how much money we throw at him? No. He should have to have people that he sits down with that explains what he's got and what he wants to play with. He should have some like-minded people that give him some assistance in that way. But at the end of the day, should he have the final yes or no say on anyone that he has to coach? I honestly strongly believe so, yes.
But again, it depends on the circumstance of the... So if we go back to my post that you mentioned, there's three types of coaching appointments. There is the first one that is the all-powerful Des Hasler type that has full control of the keys of everything, Wayne Bennett. There's the team that's put together by the club with various from various different backgrounds. So I don't know how much time Shane Richardson, who's been mentioned as a possible football manager, has spent with Jason Riles, for example. And that type of relationship, it'll either work or it won't. And then you've got the third kind, which is the team that you have at Melbourne Storm. I mean, there would have been a point in history where that was put together for the first time, of course. But an example of this is in football, Manchester City. They basically brought Barcelona to Manchester. Brisbane, I think, have tried a little bit to bring Melbourne to Brisbane.
Yeah.
Following that pattern with the Melbourne CEO and whatnot. Walters has got history at Melbourne, you know. So that's the third type. I think that Riles and his management are obviously being quite smart. They know that there is some political machinations in play all the time at that club. So he needs a security of 5 years and complete control over certain things. Otherwise, he's going to get the rug pulled from underneath him at various points if he doesn't have that. And that is probably what has happened to Hook.
I agree, and that's why I like what Riles has done. That's why I'm thinking, yeah, he should. He should. You're talking about a club that we've discussed in the last couple of weeks that it leaks like a sieve, right? So there's just information going out left, right, and centre. There's just no security around the place. The fan base has just lost touch. They're just so out of sorts at the moment. They're such a strong and proud fan base as well, and it's just a shambles. So yeah. I think it'd be a good idea for someone like Jason Riles to come in and say, no, I do this now because the way you're doing it doesn't work. It doesn't work because it hasn't worked. So let's come in and try something new. And I like the idea of someone coming in with complete control. Now, is it a rookie coach? Will it be hard? Yes. But the fact that he's walking in saying, I want it, I think that speaks volumes about him. He's saying, I want the trouble.
It speaks volumes about his opinion of himself too. I'm not sure I would want to give Jason Riles the full keys to the castle because I don't know why I should yet.
Oh, whether he gets the job or I agree with you, he's unproven whether he gets it. But I think whoever gets it should get that. I don't think his demands are,
well, if Shane Richardson came with Madge Maguire, I mean, they had a successful partnership at South.
I wouldn't be against that at all. If
they're still, good.
I'm not against that, and I'm not saying I want Jason Riles. I'm just saying I think what his requests are reasonable. I think what he's saying there. I think whoever does go into that job and I also needs to have something similar.
I also think that he's also showing that he can't be easily bought in that sense too. He's not desperate for a job, so one of the key negotiation terms is the ability to walk away.
I think that. I don't think him coming in as God, I guess you could say. I think they need, then looking at the good clubs, and I mean the really good clubs, you look at when the Cowboys were strong, they had a middleman. So there was a man between the board and the football department.
Peter Parr, wasn't it?
Peter Parr. You go down to Melbourne, there's a man between the football department and the board, and we're talking about Frank Panisi. When
there is at the Dragons too. I just don't know if that's
but there's a difference between a person that has got a strong character and can separate the two, and if we don't know who it is, it's obviously possibly a
and if those existing relationships, if those existing working relationships aren't in place already, and the trust hasn't been established over a few years, those manufactured relationships, working relationships, will either fail or drop. I put it this way: if I was the head coach, Rosie, you were the football manager, and Taylor was the head of recruitment, us three would know, I think, that there's at least one person that brings us together. So that there straight away there is a trust. I've known both of you for over a decade. That'd be quite a safe scenario, and that's why Riles asking for all his staff is a key thing too.
I think I agree with the staff. There's no if, buts, or maybe. If I'm going to be the head coach, and I mean the football, like the coaching staff, they should pick their staff. There's no if, buts, and maybes, But I think in St George's way, I think they need an old head, football brain between the two who the Craig Young's probably a great bloke, knows St George back, but his connection to a lot of the board members is probably very, very close, and very
problematic.
Yeah, where if you could bring in someone new, whether it was a Frank Panisi or whether it's a Shane Richardson, who knows what winning is and knows but not hooked up on this St George Illawarra bullshit, You know, I think that's and the good thing too is Riles isn't going to get it right. I don't care if he was the best coach in the world. He's not going to get it right the first time. And he also needs someone to guide him through that process. How much time he needs to focus in on recruitment, how much time he needs to focus in on coaching his team, when he needs to be good cop, when he needs to be bad cop, you know, and he hasn't had to develop that. He's watched it, don't get me wrong, he's watched it, but it's a big skill. You see someone who goes from an XO to a CO on a ship, totally different characters. And it's about developing those skills over that time. And as that coach, he's got to develop that skill to be everything's on his shoulders. At the moment, it's not. And he doesn't know how that feels. As much as he knows, he thinks it knows. I just think he needs someone to guide him through that process. And Shane Rich and even Nathan Brown, if they put Nathan Brown, Riles, and Richo together, that club will be in the 8 in the next 3 years. And I would be confident to say that.
I know you're the host, Taylor, and please, you know, my deep respect for that role. So I'm going to ask you permission to do this. The Riles scenario actually segues quite well into one of the topics I was going to bring up. So do you mind if I just bring it up now?
Can I bring up one little bit for this Riles topic and then we'll move on? What
we'll do is we'll go to the committee. We'll make Rosie make a decision on that.
I want to hear Taylor's, because then I think we can then move on properly.
You said a strong footballing mind to come into that role.
Yeah.
You didn't say league or union.
No.
Does Michael Checker tick that box for you?
No chance. Shut up.
Hey, Brendan, does Michael Checker tick that box for you? Or?
Check. No. Okay. I would, if Riles didn't want the job, I reckon Check could do the job as head coach with the right structure around him. He knows what winning looks like. I think he nearly won a premiership with the Tars when it was a proper Super 12.
Mm.
From what I believe, he creates a brilliant dressing room. Okay, I'm only going on. It probably ended bad with the Wallaby, but who would want to be a Wallabies coach like fair dinkum? You know, but everywhere else he went, from my understanding, he was successful. I wouldn't. I think they need someone like that. If he knows football, they need someone who's not an Illawarra player, who's not a St George player, who doesn't have any legacy with Douse or anything. They need someone, a clean skin, but someone who understands winning, but then also someone strong enough to stand up to the board and say, "Piss off, let us run the football club."
Stop swearing.
Oh, sorry, go away.
Yeah,
and look after the football club.
You said two now.
I know, I'm going to get
reasonable. Yeah.
I think you made your feelings pretty known on this topic. What I will say is I think Michael Checker has the exact same PR manager as Owls and Bears. You know, everything you see about owls, they're on the side of books, they're wise old creatures, all that sort of stuff. They kill so many land animals every year. They are absolutely savage. I think whoever does the PR for owls does a really good job in painting them as these wise old creatures. And just like bears, everyone thinks of bears, they think of honey and all these nice cute teddy bears and stuff like that. They will eat you from ass first. They are mean animal creatures. I think the exact same thing. I think Michael Checker has the best PR manager in the world. He's leaking text messages, sending them to the Dragons board about coaching. Like, come on. Listen, he was the Lebanese coach in the World Cup.
Yeah.
Tell me, yes, Lee said X's and O's is 30% of the job. I get that. But you can't rock up to a job and say, I don't know 30% of it very well at all. I just know the other 70 at an elite level like the NRL, and someone goes, okay. I think if they put Checker on, they're kidding themselves. Now, if they wanted to put him on in some sort of role where he was advising the club on his history, but he still doesn't have a history in the NRL. He doesn't have a history of NRL clubs and how they work and merge. Show me the resume that says he would be successful in the NRL, let alone at a club like St George Illawarra Dragons. I think that the suggestion was ludicrous. And yeah, that's my opinion on it. But
I can't believe you delayed my segue for 5 minutes to speak about that.
I think we rounded it off. It was in the paper. Checker was on the back page. He said, I'll put my hand up for the job.
It was also in the paper that someone weren't considering it.
Someone decided that would be on the back page. Some journo decided that was a great idea. Put your hand down, son. You know, hand in your badge. You no longer have a key card access to the building. You're out.
Can I do this segue now?
Sorry?
Isn't he coaching Argentina to the World Cup?
Oh, and he coached Lebanon to the World Cup in league.
Argentina and Union's a bit different to Lebanon.
In league?
Yeah.
Yeah, one's in the Middle East, one's in South
I hope
America.
everyone's enjoying episode 47 of the Rugby Union podcast.
I move on.
Okay, my segue. I've probably missed the moment now, thanks to you two, but we're talking about Jason Riles. The reason somebody like Jason Riles is in vogue is because somebody like Craig Fitzgibbon was at the Roosters under Trent Robinson. They won a couple of premierships and has now gone to Cronulla, who, by the way, were on an upward trajectory when he arrived because John Morris did a stellar job in his time as well. Well, since Fitzgibbon has left the Roosters, how are they looking? How good is the record of Trent Robinson looking now in terms of, well, it's obviously a very good record, but how good is he as a coach now based on what we've seen in the last 4 years? And therefore, what does this suggest about Riles' ability? Because he's there in that organisation now. So there's been enough assistant coaches of Melbourne Storm through the years. Kevin Walters was an assistant coach of the Melbourne Storm. Yet, I don't think anybody would sit here and say he's one of the best coaches in the NRL.
So was Stephen Kearney. So was Adam O'Brien.
Yes. Right? So then the other one is Sydney Roosters. Well, Craig Fitzgibbon was there and was obviously taken like a duck to water, I think, to rugby league head coach, and he's done really well. Everywhere I look at Jason Riles, I have questions. And these questions are also now linked to the Roosters because for the last 4 years, they've been on the decline. So my question is, how serious is the Roosters' decline? And what does that tell us about Trent Robinson and Jason Riles?
I wrote some notes about this on your Facebook page in regards to it. But first of all, there's two issues there. There's the Roosters and there's Jason Riles. Okay. We don't know how Trent Robinson runs his coaching stuff. We don't know if it's a Robinson or the highway, or he actually uses the staff around him. I think Bellamy, you can see Bellamy, I think Bellamy uses his staff. I think there was some pictures late after the game, after Magic Round, there was a number of coaches in a circle, and you could see that Craig Bellamy was constant. He was listening and engaging and going through that. But we don't know how. So if the Roosters are under trouble, how does Trent Robinson get out of an issue? Does he go back onto himself and try and figure it out himself, or does he open himself up and use the team around him?
I don't think there's anything that suggests Trent Robinson is an authoritarian figure in that sense, or my way or the highway. Like, I think he's very much a sort of new age coach in that sense that would bring everyone together, you know. So therefore, Jason Riles is therefore having a big impact on what is going on, I think. I can't remember if he's offense or defense coach, Jason Riles, but he's probably going to be one of them.
But the only thing that does worry me, and I'm hearing it more and more and more, and I did mention it, as I said on the weekend too, is they say, we know our systems work, we've just got to implement our system. Maybe it worked 4 years ago. Does it work now in today's game? Because 4 years ago, 2020, I think it was, that the World Rugby League changed with the 6 to go. Everyone knew the Roosters were the most highly penalised team in the comp. Mm-hmm. And when you think of it, they would penalise when they're on the back foot. They would create a penalty.
That's right.
So therefore, they would then get their structured defensive line, and then they would back their structured defence line. So where now with the 6 to go, there's no penalty for them to get back into that structured defensive line. So
also, every premiership they've won in the last decade, contained either Maloney or Cronk, two people who won premierships elsewhere and Origin series.
And they went to great high schools as well.
Where did they go?
Cronk did. He went to Laurie's, mate. He's a Laurie's boy.
All right, okay. Where did Maloney go?
Oh, who knows? Probably didn't go to school.
Went to barbecue school. He was
He went to Weber.
But, you know, there's runs on the board.
Yeah. And I think Maloney had been in 3 or 4 grand finals by the time.
That's right.
With a couple of different clubs,
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is, and this was a gist of my post, it's time for us to start asking some questions. Paul Crawley got his head chewed off for saying that one of the criticisms of Trent Robinson is he likes the sound of his own voice, I think was the term he used. But I do think Trent Robinson did fall into the trap a little bit of, or has fallen into the trap a little bit of being a doyen of coaching. So therefore, I must be right. And that's something I've never seen Craig Bellamy fall into. It's something I've never seen Wayne Bennett fall into. Something I never necessarily thought Tim Sheens fell into. I remember 10 years ago being on a coaching course and Tim Sheens was on it. And it was for community coaches, and he was there because he just wanted to keep learning. And whereas I'm not saying Trent Robinson isn't that reflective character and this, that, and the other, but if I was to say to you, I see similarities in some of the things that Robinson does and Seabold when they talk, I think you know what I mean, don't you? That they see themselves as something a bit more than a rugby league coach a little bit, and that's fine. But, I would say Robinson now has to be getting down and dirty and asking questions like, do our systems work? Critical analysis, because, again, if you look back at the Post, they've slipped a position every year in the last few years. Right now, I think they're sitting, is it 10th they're sitting or 12th?
Yeah, they're sitting 7th, but they're only 2 points away from 3rd. Like, the ladder's that close.
Yeah. But we're not having those conversations about Penrith. And we're not having those conversations about Cronulla or Melbourne. The Roosters are in 10th.
Yeah, I think.
And they've only won 50% of the games. So, and then the other part of the equation is that the narrative is always injury after injury after injury. Well, what are they doing in training? When you have years and years and years of injury, something's going wrong somewhere. Something you can measure isn't quite right. And the other thing is, everyone seems to think they've got the best roster in the comp. Well, they shouldn't be sitting in 10th then.
Yeah. I think they have probably the best roster in the comp. You're right in saying that something's not working, and the age-old rule for all of life is adapt or die. Adapt, find something to fix it, move forward. And if something's not working at the moment, and it could be one of 2 or 3 things, change one of them. If it's not that, go back, change the other. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing, perhaps there's no issue with doing that. The game has changed dramatically in the last couple of years for sure. But I thought they had a pretty good year last year, considering some of the outs they had with Keary and things like that. I thought they didn't do too bad. You've probably got to start asking the question, even if the systems are right, well, are the ingredients? Are some of these players the right sort of players for the systems that we have? In 2023, can you afford to have someone like Bradley and Waria Hargraves? I know Waria Hargraves wants to go around again, 2 of the most penalised players in the comp. Do you just have to cut off and say, look, apologies, but you're not going to get a gig? Traditionally, the Roosters have been very cutthroat with their recruitment and very cutthroat. And I often point to the Cooper Cronk Mitchell Pearce scenario to many people and say that's how thirsty that club is for success. They already had the 3rd best halfback, in my opinion, at the time on their roster, who'd played years and years for the Blues, and they went, but the best is available. We can make it work. Let's make it work. So they are known for making cutthroat decisions that will better their club and push them forward. Now, either that's not happening anymore, or have they softened a little bit? I don't know, but the one thing they absolutely need to do is adapt or die. I don't know how.
There is
I
another
have suggestions, but I don't know.
There is another caveat. A few years after winning the 2013 Premiership, I remember we were at a wedding, weren't we, that night, Rosie? Do you remember? And we couldn't watch the game.
Yeah. We were out in the back in the pokies area.
Like a couple of fish drawn into the lights.
Yeah.
Well, the other one I didn't even know they literally, when they put the wedding on, we go, that's grand final day. Grand final for what?
Because do you remember they said, we couldn't believe we got this venue. It was just free this one day. Yes, because that's grand final day.
Yeah. Can't believe you're friends with them.
I know. They won that premiership. Then a few years later, they were one off the wooden spoon.
Yeah.
They went prelim, and then wooden spoon. Now, I remember back to that time and thinking, well, maybe they're not all they cut out to be. Maybe the coaches and everything, blah, blah, blah. Because Liverpool in the English Premier League, yes, they dropped a bit, but they're still battling for the Champions League places now. Like they're not finishing second bottom in a relegation spot.
No.
And that is a precursor. One of the weaknesses in Robinson's makeup as a coach or in his team, on the Roosters makeup and team, is that ability to regenerate. So they build one championship winning side. If they're lucky, it might last 2 seasons like it did in 18 and 19, but building the next one. Because really, the gap between 2013 and 2018 is a good 5-year gap. That's 2 waves of players, basically, isn't it? That's two.
Yeah.
That's two windows in some ways.
And there was some big additions to their team, Tedesco, Kronk, things like that, and people like Tuivasa-Sheck, Tuivasa-Sheck and Minicello had to make way for those people. You know, there were people there in 2013 that weren't there for 2018 that were big stars, big stars, and that you know. So, yeah. I'm not saying sack Tedesco tomorrow and tell Kiri to get lost.
I've seen one of the comments on that post. Somebody is suggesting it's time to get rid of Teddy to get some money for him.
Really?
That's just silly. Yeah.
Wayne Bennett is watching this post.
Yeah. He'll sign for Redcliffe tomorrow. Yeah.
I was just listening.
I've got a spare room if you need a transitional spot. Let me know, James.
I was just listening to something today. Apparently the Roosters got a brand new high performance centre. They got a brand new luxury bus that travels all around Sydney. Okay, and they've got all these brand new stuff. When they were winning the premiership, because I used to drive past it every day going to work, they were literally training on a paddock in the middle of Moore Park with a bus with all their gear, you know. And the one thing that you could always say about a Roosters team, they were tough, they were no compromising, and they would never take corners. You know, they'd never cut corners, they'd always do anything. I think they've gotten comfortable in this, and it was all us against them.
Satin sheets, you reckon?
Yeah, I genuinely do. You know,
Taylor's got comfortable in his environment too. That's why he started a strong regime today.
But You look at Canberra, how they've gone, and all they're doing is being tough. They're not. They look scrabbly, but they're tough and they're winning games. You look at Redcliffe. Redcliffe, no corners cutting. They're just being tough. They're hanging in there. They're doing it for each other. They're doing it for their mates. But you can't say the same thing about the Roosters, and the Roosters were always about that. You know, if anyone dropped their standard, Friend would have a chop at them. If anyone would drop their standard, Boyd Cordner would have a go at them. You know, they were never happy with just meeting that standard. I think they've lost that tradesman. They don't have those 2 tradesmen which hold everyone accountable. You know, they don't have a Mitch Orbison that was a Mr. Fix-It, but he was as solid as a rock. You'd never and I think they've got the Butcher Boys maybe can do that in a number of years' time, but they're not in that place in there. Waria Hargraves, it's hard for him. He's accountable, but then he'll give away a penalty. How do you that sort of gets watered down real quick? Keary seems to be Mr. Nice Guy, you know, and that's no disrespect to Luke Keary, but I really think they missed that hard competitive edge within the team.
Mm. Yeah, I think Luke Keary's I feel like he might be possibly a little gun shy. If you look at his attacking game and the way he was running the football, that was one of his most electrifying traits, and I don't think he's at his own level at the moment. But I'm sure he'd tell you that himself. Let's move on. We've gone through 2 topics and we're 45 minutes through this podcast, which means we've had some absolute crackers. Brendan, let's go to your first topic because Lee and I have just smack bang the first 2.
Oh, I've got a few here, and I want to talk about match official accountability.
I love this.
Oh, can't you tell we've got a ref on here? That's a good blend here. Coach, a player, and a ref. It's like NRL 360.
But we talk sense. So, but okay. So on the weekend, and a lot of fans don't 100% know the rule, and that's no disrespect to the fan or anything like that, because realistically, you probably know the rule, but the interpretation's out there. On the weekend, Thursday night, and in the modern game, if someone gets 10 in the bin, you're really going to struggle for the rest of the game because fatigue and everything like that. So you had Paddy Carrigan get done with a penalty, 10 in the bin, no, and everyone's going, no. 2 days later, a similar tackle. I think it was on Sunday game, very similar tackle, penalised. Don't worry, mate. You just put on report, no issue. Then I think it was at the Titans game where Kieran Foran was in the line. Someone hits him on the inside shoulder. Kieran Foran was dead set looking at the player. They said, "Oh, it's his inside shoulder. You engage, so we're going to let you run through the gap." And it was a dead set try. It was a dead set obstruction. Yet and the video ref said one thing, and then the ref said, "Yeah, Kieran, I saw it the same as you," and it's blatantly on there. But with a game where there's 2 points separating first to probably seventh, and a lot of the games are so close, and I'm not saying, and I don't agree with what the sponsor did over in New Zealand. I think a lot of these discussions could stay in house. How can you change an interpretation halfway through a round, let alone halfway through a season?
I think I can answer that. I don't think they know what they're doing.
Because, okay, we were talking about coaches in that earlier. Boardrooms should board. They should run the game, run the business. The next, I just turned on my Google by talking. So, okay. So referees should ref the game at the start of the year. They say,
Alexa, how can I shave my beard?
I'm not going anywhere because I'm apparently Chewbacca. So
yeah.
I think people are forgetting what their role is in the game. We talk about players doing their role and doing it to the best, but the game doesn't do it as a whole. So the boardroom should manage the game in regards to which direction the game's going. Coaches should coach the game and worry about that, and not worry about how you run the game. Players should play the game and not trying to dictate to the board how you spend your money, where you put it at. Yet they should be looked after, don't get me wrong. And then we've got the board telling the referees how to ref each week, and they're in their ears. We need you to interpret it this way, because if you don't interpret it this way, mum and dad down the road will think, "Oh, I'm not going to sign my kid up to play because there's a high tackle." No,
I'll go back to my initial sweeping statement. I literally don't think the refs and the people leading them know what they're doing.
Oh, I 100% agree.
So when you were saying about ref accountability, I actually feel a bit sorry for the refs.
I agree with you.
Because they've got that much gunk going in their ears about what's going on. Part of me, if I was a ref, I'd throw the whistle on the floor, take me earpiece out and say, "You referee the bloody game then." Because one of the beauties of sport is that you do get different referees who see things slightly differently, because a lot of what happens in all sports is down to interpretation. Yeah. So, there are some things that are black and white, clear decisions. There are some things that are interpreted. And that's called human nature. And the more convoluted the rules are, I'm still yet to... I know old mate who stands up at the front every Monday. What's his name? Annesley. He's come up with some definition of a hip drop. But I want to know the difference between a hip drop and a tackle from behind that is so good that it knocks the opponent straight down. So where else can you land?
Yeah.
Right? Of course, hip drops aren't good, but what is a hip drop? The problem comes back to the definition. It's like a beard. It's like the beard, right, Brendan? 20 years ago, you'd have been seeing a scruffy with that beard. I'd have been seeing a scruffy with mine. Because the definition of tidiness in the year 2000 didn't necessarily constitute a beard.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2020, 21, 22, 23, all of a sudden, we're in fashion, if you like, right?
We're never in fashion.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But,
easy.
But it all comes down to the definition. It all comes down to the criteria. And the reality is, one ref to the next, the reason it's grey area, number one, because it is a grey area, but number two, because there's no absolute clarity about how that grey area should be established.
Exactly right.
And if there's two hip drop tackles in these games, there's probably 22 of them.
But also
that don't get noticed. And there's sorry, let me just finish.
Yeah.
Because I had to listen to you lot banging on about Michael Checker for 5 minutes, so you can listen to me for a bit now. There's an easy way of fixing this straight away. Put every single one of them on report. Don't sin bin.
Just let it, yeah.
Put them on report. and then give it to this match review committee. And there's another thing as well. Probably keep the bunker out of it. Let the bunker look at tries and obstructions and no, that's another one, obstruction. But did they put the ball down? Because when the video ref came in, it was basically about did he put the ball down or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I was going to say, Lee. You're right in terms of if you're going to adjudicate anything, they go, well, these are the rules. Okay, well, this is what you can't do. Well, what constitutes that? Oh, I guess it's so vague that it's hard. And going down the line that you just said then, Lee, my big question is, who is in control of a rugby league match? Who is it? Who's the main man in the pitch? Who's the main man? It's the bunker, because the bunker's whispering in their ears. Now, what they've made themselves is a nice little matrix where the bunker will talk to the ref's ear and they will say, this is what we think, blah, blah, blah. The referee doesn't have to listen. They're the man in the middle, right? But if they don't listen and the bunker's right, they would get absconded on Monday when they have to come and do their referee training, or they'd be, we told you this and you didn't listen and look how bad it was, blah, blah, blah. Now, if the bunker does tell them something and the ref listens, the ref can then turn around and be, oh, sorry, they've told me what to do. So they can both blame each other. They've got this little area where they can blame each other for the calls if they're right or wrong. Not that they use it, but then there's no one in control. There's no one that says, this is my game and stamps on it. You're exactly right, Lee. What they need to do is go, and this is why we got rid of 2 referees in the first place, was it not? So you didn't have 2 different opinions on the pitch at the same time. We got back to 1 referee.
Probably to halve the costs as well.
No, they're not paid matches; they're paid salaries. So
Yeah, but
you get rid of half of them then. Can't you?
Well, that's probably true.
Can't have half of them waiting on the sideline for a game.
Yeah, and then what do you have? 2 refs in waiting just in case one gets injured, or suddenly, I see what you mean. But so you're now back to having 2 referees. One's just in a bunker, and there's 3 other people supporting them. Let the man I would much rather the man in the middle make a judgment call with what he sees at the time. And if it's wrong later, it's wrong later. It is what it is. But it's a lot better than what we have now, because with the technology and all that, you'd expect it to be perfect.
The rugby league refereeing ecosystem is full of paralysis by analysis. I'll give you another example, and Rosie will be all over this. Referees that stand back 11 meters so that they can see the defensive line, right? Well, when that filters down the game as well, the NRL's one thing because they're full-time professionals. When it filters down, some of those referees don't communicate well. I saw this in a Division 2 under-16s game the other day. He was going back 11 meters on a very well-lined field. And he was of a certain caliber, the ref, so you knew what he was trying to do. But the teams went back 11 meters with him.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't communicated to them. Now, as the other thing, if you go back that 11 meters, you're then putting the onus on the player to work out what 10 meters is. Now, some of the players I've coached and played with, they don't even know how to measure something with a tape measure, never mind without one.
It's not about measuring. I was too tired to know.
That's right.
The amount of times I'd get in a game and I'd have my head, as you know, Lee, I'd have my bloody ice skates on. My head would be down and the legs would be going like this. So I'd have my skates on and I'd just look up enough to go, where's my teammates? Where's the ref?
Yeah.
And just hit a line with my back foot and then off I'd go again because I was a forward. It's just.
And then the other one is obstruction. So we have a culture in the game that we've all been privy to where people work off the ball. You have block plays, double block plays, blah, 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 blah. Well, now all of a sudden, you have defenders jumping in like Swan Lake and pretending that somebody's knocking them over. You've got that problem with the obstruction, what it is and what it isn't. Well, obstruction should be somebody's obstructed you from making a tackle and then work back from there. The other one is because of these silly rules in the ruck, you've brought in play acting there too. So a game that used to be as honest as it came has now become one where there is more play acting than ever. And I think this hip drop is part of that too, because I think player feels something on the back of his legs now and they just drop.
Yeah, I think you're right. Everyone would. I don't care who you are. But I think there's only one thing I'd say. One thing the Premier League has got pretty good is, my understanding is the video ref will go, I think you need to have a look at it, and then the referee will then make the decision. And I think as a referee, I know you get a feel for the game, and you get a gut feeling on when a guy's bullshitting, or when a guy's not doing the right thing. And play acting is your Swan Lake.
Yeah.
You get another one where it's a genuine the guy was taken out.
Yeah.
And I think if when the tries, I agree with the grounding and all that, the video, but these subjective things, I think need to, and you can see it on a big screen. Every ground's got a big screen. The referee makes that decision, and that comes back to Taylor's one. Then someone is accountable for those decisions, and it's end of story.
And I'm going to just add another one in because I've answered a question that I got on Facebook from a follower called Dan, because he said he's been going back and forth with his granddad, and we mentioned hip drops and different things. So I've covered some of the bases. He said in the AFL they have a no ducking rule. So, when you're given head high tackle.
That was Swanee. That come because of one of the Selwood brothers kept cracking his head. Yeah.
Mate, we've had enough talk about rugby union. Stop talking on now about AFL. It's a rugby league coach podcast. But the amount of rugby league players that dip into tackles and then get given head high against. This comes down to rugby league referees not knowing the game because they didn't grow up properly with the game, or play it enough or something. I think I'd rather talk about Michael Checker. Honestly, it's so bad. It's so bad. And people are turning their backs on the game from it, boys.
Yeah. I just sit there and shake my head.
Can I make a community announcement, Taylor, please?
Yeah, well, it's about 9:30. It's about that time.
No, it isn't. It's nowhere near.
What do you mean?
It's 9:22.
Oh, my laptop must be wrong. It says 9:27.
One of the kids at Greenbank Rangers, where I ran one of my clinics at the start of the year from the under-17, Fletcher, battling a brain tumour.
That's terrible.
Oh.
And obviously his mum and dad have to get a few bickies together to, quite often when people make pleas, I always go back to Alex McKinnon, and some people were critical of him when he tried to sue to get some money and this. People think your battle is over after the first year or so. Well, it isn't.
Nah.
Somebody like Alex McKinnon has got to have help around himself for the rest of his life. If he lives till 80, that's an awful lot of money. This kid, he's on the road to recovery, but obviously there's costs pertaining to that and things that we probably can't even guess come up as well. So there is a GoFundMe. It's been shared on Rugby League Coach. I will continue to share it. If anybody's listening and they want to put something in, just message me on the socials. But yeah, that's Fletch at Greenbank Rangers in Queensland, boys.
Going on from them is something I saw today, and I know this is a really close one with Lee, but I was sitting on Facebook this morning, and I saw the image of Kevin Sinfield carrying Rob Burrows over the line.
Yeah,
and I look at that, and I'm just thinking, Kevin Sinfield was an awesome player, but he's an even better person. How can it? And I sat there and I'm going, wait a second, is it really Sir Kevin Sinfield or?
No, it's not Sir Kevin.
No. And then I read an article from, I think it was one of the newspaper in Leeds, saying we need to have a look into it. And then I looked into it and I said, okay, who are the sports stars, sports people from England that are Sirs? So you got people like Lewis Hamilton. Yeah, he does a lot of work with equity and different things like that. Then you got Sir Bradley Wiggins. Well, he can ride a push bike. And
so Steve Redgrave,
Alistair Cook, Andrew Smith. So we've got a guy here that's
Ali Cook.
And they won an Ashes series. Woo.
Yeah.
But here's a guy that any sport, he's won 7 times champion of the Super League. Like I don't know any other professional sports person that's done that. He's 3 times World Club Challenge. No player other than him's probably done that. He's 2012 Golden Boot, one of 4. This was prior to 2017. Now it's just who did good in 2 or 3 games, because it has to be international games. So he's one of 4 players, and we're talking about Ellery, Hanley, Farrell. But then that's only half his life. What the guy has done for motor neuron disease is incredible.
He's done about 20 marathons or something like that.
So alone, the it's called the Rob Burrows Leeds Marathon, where 12,000 people ran, and they hadn't had that in 20 years, and he raised $5.6 million. He then in 2020 raised £8 million, not dollars, pounds, when he ran 7 ultra marathons back to back to back.
Mm-hmm.
Then in 2020, and it didn't say how much money he raised, but he ran 7 marathons in 7 days. And then in 2021, the freak ran 101 miles in 24 hours, which is 4 marathons in a day.
Mm-hmm.
How, compared to these other sports stars alone, the guy should be Sir for his playing career and his personal career.
You're going into a territory which comes down to the class issue in England, though, too, because rugby league isn't an establishment sport. So if he was a rugby union player,
or a soccer player,
it'd be fine. Cricketers, establishment sport. But you're right. What he's done is absolutely amazing. I'm just glad I don't have to carry Taylor over a line.
Well, we'd have to get a forklift for you, Lee. And I'm not pushing you because there's got to be. Is there hills in Leeds?
Ipswich. I asked him. I kept in my last couple of years. Said, "When's the statue of me coming? When's the statue of me coming?" And they said the bronze had cost too much. Mate, you work out in the gym. This is what you get. You know what I mean?
If there was a statue of you in Ipswich, it would be grinded off in about a week and then taken down to local copper place.
Yeah, by me. I'd make sure it left pretty quick. No, I'd draw obscenities on it. I would.
But also too, we talk about all these things. We talk about all these bad things about the game, but why aren't we putting people? And he's not Robinson Crusoe on this. We've got. I know Steve Renoff's doing a whole heap of stuff for youth up in Nanango, Kingaroy, Mergen area.
Yep.
JT bought himself an aeroplane so he could fly out to places and do that. But we focus in on looser, just silly stuff, and then it just frustrates me because
so we've done rugby union, we've done AFL, and now we're talking about decisions the monarchy and the British government make.
He's a football player.
Who?
Kevin Sinfield.
No, he's a rugby league player, ex-rugby league player. And he actually works in rugby union right now. He's the England defence coach in rugby union.
But he's also part of the board. He's
Not
part
anymore.
of the Leeds board.
Don't think he is anymore.
He was director of football on Leeds.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. It's yeah.
Well, I hope he's not this where they sit.
Yeah, no. Mate, when I was playing for Salford Academy back in the day, I played with Kevin's older brother Ian, and I remember vividly us being sat on the bus coming back from some hellhole that we played at and lost, and we were talking about players and playing, and he said, "Look, I ain't the best one in my family. You need to wait and see my brother." And that was Kevin, who's a few years younger than him. And
did he play?
Ian played a little bit, a little bit. But Kevin came through, very, very good player. And I think one of the problems with Kevin is that really he probably should have been a loose forward all his career, but because at different times of his career that we didn't have that much depth in the England's or Great Britain side, sometimes he found himself at standoff 5'8" or half back or whatever. So he got moved around a little bit. I think as a loose forward, as a lock, he was really good.
In today's game, he'd be unstoppable.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Sinfield in today's game as a ball playing lock would be in the NRL. He'd be unstoppable.
Yeah, or I think he even played a bit of hooker too, so he could play that Alan Tong type role. Very, very big raps on Kevin Sinfield. Very big raps from every angle, really. So, I sort of part of me wants to see him on the front page of the Sun or the Daily Mail in some kind of scandal, because he just seems to be the perfect mate and the perfect everything, doesn't he? So
start calling him nobody, because nobody's perfect.
Yeah. So
and nobody's perfect. So. And his best mate's a singer, and John Eales is good mates with Pete Murray. You're talking about the original nobody. But I just what he's doing over there is just tremendous,
unbelievable. Yeah,
but also too, it just shows you the friendships you forge in the game. I don't know if they knew each other before they started playing for Leeds, but he's not doing this for Kevin Sinfield. He's not doing for it to become Sir. He's doing it because he's best mate he's struggling, and he doesn't want to see someone else having to go through that.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And that's only because of the friendships you do in sport, and I think that's underestimated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that does feel like a bit of a natural ending. That a bit of a good news story, good feel story. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah.
What do you think, Lee?
Yeah.
All right.
Twice I've said yeah.
Well, the reason why I did that is because I'm trying to lure you in with one of your little end podcast.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to. What I'm doing, I've baited the hook up there, and I've thrown it out, just seeing if I get a nibble.
Okay, so what I'd like to discuss is, like when you're deciding what to wear, and there's a time when your winter get up comes out. You put it away for the summer, and then it comes out again, and everything else. Like, I'd like a discussion around the three of us about how we approach such conditions. So, obviously, Rose is a bit further south than us, so it's probably a lot colder. But like tonight, Taylor, I'm in a jumper and you're in a shirt, and we're 40 minutes.
I've actually got the fan on. I've got the fan on.
All right. I have got a fan on ever so lightly, just because I like air circulating. I don't, I'm
that popular. I've always got a fan.
What is our approach to clothing at the minute? And what first world issues do we have?
So the biggest thing for me in winter or autumn as it gets colder, I sleep naked no matter what. I'm always nude when I sleep. That's how I feel the most comfortable.
I think that's the only way to sleep.
Thank you very much. Mind you, that beard gets any longer, you'll have coverage anyway.
I was actually lying. It was annoying the shit out of me the other night.
So the most annoying thing is if I have to get out of bed and go and do anything, I don't mind, walking around the house nude, but it's that cold. So I have to put my robe on or a shirt on or something and that's really annoying because it decreases my time. It increases my time out of bed. It really annoys me. So that's probably my first world problem at the moment with the cold is that I have to put layers on when I get out of bed, and that annoys me.
Mm-hmm. Brendan?
The third world problem, the first, sorry. I am not far from Parramatta, so it is pretty third world. So is you have to think about the whole day. So you get up early in the morning. So I'm leaving home at 4:00, and it's like freezing. Then you get in the day and the sun comes up, so it gets warm. But then you get into the afternoon around 5, 6 o'clock, and it's cold again.
You got to carry lots with you, don't you? Because if you got your jumper, and then you got to take your jumper off, and then and
then you're hot, and then you go and then when you're leaving work, you're going I better grab my jumper again. But even though it's hot, so and you always got a bag.
You're inside for half an hour, so you get your jumper on, and then you go outside and it's sun, and you're sweating within seconds.
Yeah.
You have the opposite problem in England, that you have to wrap up cold, but then you'll go in a pub or you'll go in wherever, and they'll have the central heating on full blast, or in someone's house, and within 30 seconds you're peeling all the layers off because you're too hot, So
yeah, but you've got the Fakari rug underneath the jumper anyhow.
Mate. Oh mate, they love it.
They love it. Jeez.
Yeah, they just keep curling it.
I love the fact that in this podcast I had the perfect opportune moment to shout out Special Ops Socials and still didn't. I said that Michael Checker has the best PR manager in the world. I should have said I've actually got some news. He gets looked after by Special Ops.
He'd have to pay Special Ops some serious cabbage.
Well, what does Special Ops actually do? And where can you find them?
sosocials.com.au. Do run social media platforms for people. So, for example, let's say Taylor, as a media person, wanted his reputation out there a lot more. We would run his social media campaigns for him, organic and paid if we wanted to, give advice on whether they need anything else like a website, Google and whatnot. And we can build all them. We can do copywriting and whatnot. So, yeah.
I'll say, cool.
I know the bloke who owns Special Ops Socials.
Who owns Special Ops?
It's this great bloke who
he's got something to do with the rugby league.
And
he's got something to do with the rugby league coach.com.au as well.
I thought so. If you're going to go, we need a beer sponsor. Come on.
You don't have to tell me twice.
All right. So here's another one then. what beer should sponsor us and why. So, like, I think I'm a massive fan down in New South Wales of, is it Reshes?
Rashes, yeah.
Reshes, I love
I
that.
never had it.
It's in the surfboard. It's great.
I'm just talking Aussie beers here because we're based in Australia. We can maybe get an English beer too. I love my bitters over in England. I like Melbourne bitter in Melbourne.
Mm-hmm.
I like that one. Yeah. It's good. Good.
Have
drop.
you tried Better Beer, Lee?
Whatty?
Better Beer.
Better be, yeah.
Never
Better
heard
beer.
of it.
Not a big.
You'd be right up there, Ali. A bunch of social media influencers made a beer called Better Beer. 0 carbs, 0 sugars, and it actually tastes really good. I love it.
If I'm having a beer, you know what I want?
All the carbs and all the sugars.
Yeah.
No, look, it tastes really good. It tastes exactly like beer. It's great. It actually, I love it. I enjoy it. It's my beer of choice.
Brendan Taylor's going through a phase. It started at 6 a.m. this morning. Eating,
I was up
eating like a rabbit.
I was
training.
up at 4:15 this morning. Actually,
Training.
thank you.
I don't know what else he's doing. Like
I was already on the road. The only way to get a car park at work.
I was just getting in from a night out.
What did she already kicked you out?
No. I watched City last night.
I was up watching Man U the other night. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well,
The less said about that, the better. United.
I'm actually probably a 4 Pines fan.
Oh,
4 points.
Or just the old faithful Super Dry.
Oh,
super dry is all right. Yeah.
jeez.
Gives you a headache though.
You need to get out. You need to get out a bit.
Oh, sorry. I'm going to go drink the Nathan Cleary Penrith beer.
Mind you, the amount of rugby union we've been talking, I'm surprised you aren't talking about champagnes or something, or
What, G&T?
strawberries and cream, G&T. Yeah, maybe having a picnic in the outside.
I actually had about 10,000 G&Ts last week, and I'll tell you what, I woke up the next morning with no headache after the gin and tonics. I felt absolutely perfect. I had myself a nootropic electrolyte drink, and I was good as gold, good as new. And I was like, mate, gin and tonics all the time.
When we were in Poland playing the test match, I did a couple of team bonding nights, and we had 5 or 6 pints over there, and we were short, we were gone. Which, you know, there was a couple of seasoned campaigners there, and we couldn't believe that, like 5, 6 beers, and we couldn't even spell Jemima, and woke up in the morning, could have took on the world.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You tend to get that in Europe. It's good. Yeah.
Why do you tend to get that in Europe?
I think it's less preservatives. I think there's more preservatives in the beer here to keep it to help it last longer with the hot conditions that it quite often.
Yeah, right.
When I was over in Brazil, we went through a lot of alcohol one day, and then I was maggot. I think I fell asleep in the garden, but I woke up good as gold the next day. So I think it is the preservatives. I really do. I think, yeah, and because they try and do all these different flavors and different. Where if it's just standard beer, it's good. But I'll be. I'm onto the G&T or the Bundy Red. So
yeah. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with a G&T.
I'm sure that bottle in the corner's gone down a bit since last week.
Potentially.
He's got it hooked up to his forearm. It's gone down since the start of the podcast.
And the angle of the dangle's different to last week too, so it's obviously been touched and moved. So
yeah, well, I think I had that with some fat little lamb.
Oh.
Yeah, I think which one? Yeah, I had some fat little lamb, which is can be pretty potent, and with some Bundy Red, and was not good.
It's been a pleasure, boys.
Pleasure.
Very much so. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We'll see you next week.
See you next week. Yeah.